You know, for all the trouble I have finding good help up here, David the drone man, even plying him with pies, kind of hard to get him enthused anymore. I think he'll come around, but now Jim here, I can't even get him to stop. So I think if I get some cabin logs laid out there, I'm just going to tell him how to do it, and I can go sit back and let him build. Hey Jim, look, we got company coming. Oh my, that doesn't happen very often. Oh, Jim! One of them's a woman. I get inside the cabin and you get those long johns off the hook. Hide them. Oh, put those dirty dishes in the oven and spray some of that Deep Woods off around in there. Anything's got to help. Oh, I'm just kidding. I knew they were going to show up, and it's not the first time that Mark and Mary have been out to the cabin, and quite a bit of history with them I'll show you. In the early days of our cabin ownership, Mark and I used to ride out from our places back in civilization, and one time we brought the snowmobile out in really deep snow, and you can see how deep the snow was. I don't think I've ever been there like that before. Even Mary, now this is her daughter, and this daughter now has been living in Russia a long time, to give you how long ago that was. And Mark was also out there on our first night at the cabin, but here he is with our old friend Wayne. We do get a lot of spruce grouse around. There was a few here this morning, but we have this little bear defense over here, and it sends off a shotgun primer if you trip the string. Well, I walked in the wrong place, and when that popped, of course, my spruce grouse took off. But otherwise, you can walk around them out here, and they really don't care, is what you'll see in some of these videos. So I'm gonna spread this out, trying to make a nice place for them to come in, and we can get a good group shot. Yesterday morning we had 13 out here, but we'll see if we can even improve on that. Since they're around here so much, I have the opportunity to film and observe some different actions. One reason I have them around here is because they like grit. And years ago, I set up this little structure so I could keep the snow off, and I hauled in #2 chicken grit. And they've always really liked that. Well, just by a little trial and error and by accident, I found out that they actually prefer the gravel from a little vein that I found up 400 meters north up at the beaver dam. Yeah, 400 meters on Martin's cabin's going metric, whether the USA likes it or not. So I go up to the wheelbarrow and I bring this down, and I've experimented, and I know that if they have their choice between the #2 chicken grit and the natural gravels, that 90% of the time they prefer the natural gravels. So I'm kind of changing over. It makes me happy. I don't have to haul in hundreds of pounds of chicken grit every year. So I'm going to get a good supply of this up. And even to add to the experiment, on the ground down here, I took under the shelter and I put half chicken grit and I filled the other half with the natural gravel. And they really prefer this natural gravel. This is the spot where a few years ago there was a major bust out on this beaver dam that I'm standing on right now, and it washed out this big hole and it exposed sand and gravel. And as I was coming by here, I kept seeing the spruce grouse hanging around and picking grit, so I figured, well, that's what they like. So this has been a little quarry where I've been getting that good gravel out of there to haul back for the grit station at the cabin. And they certainly prefer this natural grind. With the spruce grouse in their natural hunt for grit, they spot these trees that have had the root ball blown up, and then they come over and they check, and when they look down here and they find that it ripped up things out of the little gravel vein, they'll come back here again and again. I've witnessed that when I deer hunted this woods. Some of their favorite uprooted trees every few mornings, and I was out there different times, and just about daylight there's a troop of them would show up and enjoy that natural gravel bed exposed by the blown over tree. No, we haven't jumped seasons. I just put this clip in from last spring on this little stream just to show you the difference of what happens when it doesn't rain all summer. The swamps drain out and these wetlands become, well, drylands. This is what that beautiful little stream looks like when it goes dry. And it's dry enough up here now, I know that it'll take about 5 inches of rain over a few weeks in order to get the ground saturated enough where this creek starts to flow again. Everything is really dry, and I'm taking advantage of hiking up what would be the headwaters of that little stream that's gone dry. Usually these swamps out here are calf to knee deep, but they've drained out, all the water's drained down, so just a dry mat of grass to walk on. The bears sure love scratching themselves here and putting their back up against her, I think, and rubbing and then reaching up and pulling. This signpost has been here enough years, it's got to be another generation of bears by now. I had to get rid of this big log that was across one of our main trails. I got some friends that deer hunt in here quite a bit, and they like to just go along and sit down on a stump and they take their time. They hardly ever get a deer up here because there's so few around that they don't care, but they love the country, so I thought I'd make it a little easier on them. So I went to the special care. I cut this tree, and I don't need to explain this. If you look at that horizontal log, you see how it's kind of cut at a slant. Well, I did that because the big log that I cut it off of, I wanted a nice backrest. So you'd sit on that horizontal log you see, and you'd rest against the rest of the log. Well, I came back here today and like I mean, I probably got you confused by now, but it had me confused just walking up here. I was like, where did my backrest go? Well, the way these trees can do, when I got the weight off and I cut that off, that stump sprung back up in the air again. So there's our backrest. A little high to use. The joke's on me. On second thought, maybe I should just not say anything about it. And as people come by here, they can wonder, how in the world did anybody cut that tree off that far in the air? Oop. I think I just saw the gray ghost slip across. I'm sure of it. I had enough extra pieces laying around. After I finished my coffee, had a nice rest. I assembled it again with a nice sloping backrest. And all I gotta say is, if anybody gets the gray ghost from sitting here, owe me a steak dinner. This opening is a continuation of the wide lane. Goes south from where I saw that gray ghost slip by a few minutes ago. I cut the brush in here a year ago, and it's kind of a treat when Jim and I walked out here several days ago, just clearing the brush off the side trail. What must have been a great gray owl swooped down and headed out of here. So it always tickles me when you do a little habitat restoration and keep a little opening. They come out here and hunt mice and voles. To come across them doing that. I've been trying to train this little chipmunk to come in for food. It might not be the wisest move I ever made.